Blue states are fighting to protect your rights, and nowhere is that more evident right now than in Washington state, where Governor Jay Inslee just this week signed a series of gun reforms into law, including one that made Washington the 10th state to ban sales of AR-15s and dozens of other semi-automatic rifles. And on the same day, Republicans in Iowa passed the most sweeping anti-trans bathroom law in the nation. Governor Inslee was signing legislation to protect out-of-state patients seeking gender-affirming care and abortion care from being prosecuted. The governor also announced his state was taking the unprecedented step of stockpiling a 3-year supply of the medication abortion pill mifepristone, calling it a, quote, insurance policy as the future of the drug hangs in the balance. Joining me now is Washington Governor Jay Inslee. Governor Inslee, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. So it's obvious that you've been very busy. Let's talk about that. You know, in a broad sense here, talk about the work you and the legislator have been doing to shore up and protect the rights of your constituents. And broadly speaking, what do you see that is happening across the country compelling you to take these measures?
Well, listening to your depiction, what I can say is our state has been fighting aggressively and creatively, and most importantly, successfully against this right-wing agenda that's going across the country. And it's interesting listening to your depiction. I had kind of an insight. The three things you mentioned to protect a woman's right of choice, to do common sense gun safety legislation, to stockpile mifepristone, those things, they have something in common. They represent the vast majority of what Americans think, actually in red and blue states. And what we're doing is standing up for democracy. Frankly, where legislators are not protecting the right of choice, like in Kansas, for instance, the people voted to protect the right of choice. The effort to keep weapons of war out of our schools, the vast majority of Americans believe that is a common sense measure. So what I would say is the things that we are fighting for in this regard are not just democratic principles, they're ones that the vast majority of Americans believe. And I'm glad to be one of the governors in blue states who are moving to protect these rights. And I'm really proud of what our state has done.
When you talk about the fact that the majority of Americans support these measures or wanting to ban, for example, assault rifles in our schools and classrooms, does that mean the through line between all of these is that there is a broader attack on the democratic will of the people of this country? I mean, when you have states going around the courts, when you have people kicking off legislators from their seats, when you have people refusing to ban assault rifles from classrooms, does that mean our democracy is under attack?
Very much so. Democracy is under attack right now, obviously in January 6th when the insurgency took place. But there are broader and actually more persistent attacks on democracy. Packing the courts, as Trump did. The terrible gerrymandering that's gone on, which really denies people the legitimate right to choose their representative. The North Carolina Supreme Court just made an issue that basically will allow the Republicans to gerrymander that beautiful state beyond all human recognition. The filibuster has prevented the majority will from moving for the U.S. Senate. The attack on voting rights by the Republican Party that has tried every way they can to suppress the number of people who actually vote, we protect that. We think voting by everyone, Democrats and Republicans, we should inspire. Republicans are afraid of the majority will. That's why they believe in gerrymandering, making it as difficult as possible to vote. And now the assault coming from the U.S. Supreme Court on our rights of choice are obvious. So I do think this is a matter of the policies involved in common sense gun safety, the policies involved in a woman's right of choice, but it's democracy itself that we ought to be fighting for right now, and we're doing that big time.
You were the first blue state to secure a stockpile of mifepristone. Massachusetts has since followed suit, New York as well. Talk about the importance of protecting that access for your constituents and why you did it.
Well, I think we have to realize that a woman's right of choice is going to be under attack now for years to come by the Republican Party. And we have to be very forward-thinking and creative. So what I did is order our Department of Corrections, because they're a licensed pharmacy, to stockpile several years of mifepristone before the Texas court decision came down. And that's important because now that we have the product in our state, no matter what happens at the Supreme Court level, and this surprises some people, even without FDA approval, our state is eligible to distribute this very safe and very effective product for the last 2 decades. We will be able to distribute this even if the Supreme Court plays games with the FDA approval. We've also passed a shield law, which prevents other states like Texas and Idaho trying to come into our state and use our judicial system to wrongfully, in an unconstitutional matter, try to enforce their bans on women's right of choice. And so I think this is the first of many of the things we're going to have to do creatively. We need to be on the balls of our feet. This is going to be a long struggle, and I'm glad that other states have joined Washington State in this regard.
Let me get your reaction, sir, to something that the RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel, said on Fox this morning, asked about the issue of abortion access. She replied saying in part, quote, "The guidance we're going to give our candidates is you have to address this head on." Would you like Republicans to tackle abortion in campaigns head on?
Well, I would actually, this may seem a little strange, but I'd like them to be honest. Because if they're honest, they will say they'll do everything humanly possible to dictate, as a politician, to order an American woman to carry a pregnancy to term. That is, if they're honest, they're going to get voted out of office big time, as they were in the last midterms. It was supposed to be a big red wave, hardly a red wave. We saw the first evidence that Americans want to protect a woman's right of choice. I actually think a lot of people are going to ignore that, counsel. They're going to try to run and hide. They're going to try to obfuscate. They're going to create fog. But we know they're coming for a women's right of choice. This is going to be a voting issue. And I think we're on the right side, both of Americans' democracy and American women in this case.
Let me get your thoughts on my interview that I just had with Montana State Representative Zooey Zephyr, who was barred from the State House chamber by Republicans for the rest of the legislative session. What do you make of the increasingly authoritarian tactics of state Republicans? We also saw similar tactics in Tennessee.
Well, I think it's of a piece of the anti-democracy system that, unfortunately, that party is now embracing. It runs through the insurgency on January 6th, voter suppression, gerrymandering, and now this to actually try to silence people who have a position in legislatures. The first thing I can say about it is it's not working. It's not working for them. People believe voices need to be heard in our democracy. It is highlighted, actually, the causes that these legislators have stood for of justice and civility and allowing people to speak. Look, I understand the need to have debates, but there's a lot better ways to handle this than they're doing, because they're actually trying to suppress arguments in their chambers. It's an anti-democratic, anti-democracy measure, but it's just part of what they've done. And it's sad. I actually believe we need 2 great parties. I think we need honest debate, but we ought to let people vote and we ought to let people speak. And when those 2 things are under attack, as they are by the Republican Party across the country, we've got to be aggressive.
Let me speak to you, sir, if I can, about some party politics. As you are very well aware, President Biden has announced his reelection for 2024. And I wanted to get your thoughts on politics here for a moment. Do you think he is? I mean, he's framed the conversation as a battle for the soul of America, kind of like what you have done right now. Do you think he is the right man for this fight for the next 4 years?
You bet. I'm 100% for him. I've seen him do amazing things. You may know that I've been very passionate to try to fight climate change for the last several decades. Yep. And what he was able to achieve was truly stunning in the Inflation Reduction Act to create $360 billion of investment to help Americans get access to clean energy, and most importantly, to grow millions of jobs, as we are doing in our state, even with our clean energy action. This is a stunning achievement, and it's coming in just at the right moment. We need someone who follows the science, who's willing to create jobs. He knows how to do that. I love his theme. Let him finish the job. I'm all for that. So we'll be 1,000%. The J in Joe stands for jobs, and we like that attitude.
Washington Governor Jay Inslee, it's always a pleasure, sir. Thank you so much for coming on. We hope to see you again.